won't get it. Watch me move. This is selling. Yeah. On my Kodak. Black.
Thank you all for joining us again. At this time, we will give the stage back to Baba Siddiqui for the plenary session. Thank you. Baba Siddiqui, we cannot hear you.
Yes, I just, based on the instructions I received from you and your colleagues, I've learned how to unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we are Black, and I'm assuming from some very productive cadre sessions, and we want to move right along. And so we have 7 cadres, and as I stated before, that the bottom line is that each cadre, in terms of co-facilitators, has 8 minutes to, in fact, give your report, your summary report. So we will start off with family essence. If hopefully you're prepared to give your 8-minute presentation in terms of what summary came out of your session.
If you can please indicate in the chat who will be speaking on behalf of Family Essence. Thank you.
Oh, certainly. Family Essence. Let me get my listing right here. All right, that would be Joe McCall and Dr. E. Faye Williams.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir, Joe.
Greetings.
Yes, sir.
I think we're waiting for Dr. Williams to connect as well.
Moment, mine went off. Okay, well, I'd like to say that we had a wonderful group. We talked about just a lot of things. We started out defining the family and talking about our own families. We talked about our family values, our family traditions, family culture, and we shared that. Let me stop this phone 1 second. Okay, one of the things we did was, fortunately, we had elders on our line, and one of our elders made a great talk about the importance of elders and having to work much harder right now through the challenges that we're having with COVID. And she talked about one of the ways that she did it was to get permission from her daughter, I think it is, and the children's father, to talk with the children, call them up and talk with them about some of the things they needed to know. And she said, one of the things she always talks about is history with the children, because our children just don't know enough about our history. I thought she made a good point on that. And of course, we talked about because we are all not blood, doesn't mean that we don't have responsibilities for our elders. Other generations took that responsibility, and we must return to taking on that responsibility too. We shouldn't allow bloodlines to interfere with who we are and how we treat people. And we also talked about the need to return to knowing who's in our community, who is there, knowing something about them and being able to help where we can. We talked about how important history is, and that we should learn that we need not just learn one side of history, but let's say, for instance, if we are progressive or liberal or whatever, we also need to know about conservatives and what their agenda is, because many times their agenda will impact who we are as a family. So we need to look at the news, we need to look at television, we need to look at current events and share those things, whether they agree with our position or not, because the other side's positions are impacting our lives. the family that we once knew, we knew where we were, but now we don't know our neighbors, and we need to return to getting to know them. At all levels, we talked about having a problem with basic identity. You and I and we must learn to work together. Let's not split off from each other. As children over here, father over here, mother over here, etc. But we are one large family, and we need to learn to do that. And we need to try to get back a healthy religious system. We talked about challenges requiring us to stay cohesive when others are trying to tear us apart. And that's what's going on now. Many of the media and many of other persuasions are making an effort to tear us apart. So we have to seek out each other and seek an understanding. We must know to whom we listen to in the end. We talked about technology and the impact that it's having on the family. We were told there is a good side and there is a bad side, and we need to know both those sides. For instance, where would we be now without technology, since many of us are just sort of at home, we can't go out, so we need the technology. But at the same time, when we're not in the COVID period, sometimes younger people, particularly in the family, get caught up in technology, and they don't give a lot of attention to the personal kinds of things like family and the warm hug, etc. And Joel, you can add if you want to on either of these points. Just stop me and go ahead and expand on it. At a certain point, I'll probably stop and let you do it anyway. We talked about the importance of seeing grandparents. With COVID, it's making us realize that a cell phone cannot replace that warm hug. So it has its good points, that we are isolated now and we can't all be together because we are understanding how much we need each other. Children don't really have activities, and we talked about how some of us have allowed young people to write essays during this period about how they're dealing with COVID, because we often forget that the children are going through difficult times right now too. And as parents, maybe we're so busy trying to feed them, trying to do things that we forget that we need to have talks with our children about COVID. We talked about.
Just a reminder, you have 8 minutes now, 8 minutes for each cadre. So.
Oh, it just stopped me when 8 minutes are up. But Joel, what would you like to say something then before our 8 minutes are up? We have a lot more here.
Sure. One of the things, the really important things that came up with the wonderful group of about 22 or so in the Family Essence cadre was it's very important for us to work on the family that we have, that the spirit of competitiveness between the man and the woman, and understanding and identifying roles. That was a theme that came up again and again. One brother mentioned that it's not so much a passing of a baton between the man and the woman, because that implies a race, a competition. But if we, if we're really working in a natural and healthy way, there's not a spirit of competitiveness between the man and the woman, and so that what is a Black man, what is a Black woman, our identity can really root, and the children can relate properly. And confront and be a defense against the confusion that is trying to break up the Black family. So that was one of the key things it was a theme that was woven through a lot of the commentary that our wonderful participants had.
And finally, we're all finished. I mean, our 8 minutes are up.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a lot more. I'd like to write up some of it and pass it on to you, my brother.
Oh, well, the bottom line is that we're expecting a written summary from all the cadres and the blueprint we want to put together.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move right along to communications and technology. Co-facilitators are Bob Law and William Morrell. Can you hear us, Bob and William? You're muted, Bob.
Unmute myself.
Okay, we can hear you.
You can hear me now.
Yeah.
And you need William.
Mr. Morel, can you give us the name that you're listed under so that we can find you in the participant list? Thank you. Please put that in the chat.
Okay, you can lead it off, Bob.
Well, no, William has the notes,
Mhm.
and but okay. I really wanted him to be able to share the information. He accepted the task of recording and reading, and so I want him to be able to make the presentation. It was a good meeting. We where we agreed is that we need to, as communicators, broadcasters, content providers, we need to establish the narrative and then to broadcast that narrative consistently. And in order to do that, and we recognize that we are active in what is called the marketplace of ideas, and that we really need to bring skill and insight into that marketplace. The adversaries, the enemies of our people, use the marketplace of ideas to demonize our people, to demonize us even in our own minds, to control they control the narrative of what is appropriate, what is, they have appraisal power over us. They decide who is worthy, who is a leader, who is popular. They control the narrative. And we have a need to control the narrative that is being promoted in our community ourselves. So everybody agreed with that. And then we looked at, so how do we do that?
Just want to
And,
now we'll cut you off. We got 5 minutes left between you and William. So.
well, but is William here?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
Well, strong consensus over one item, maybe two items, but the major item is that we've agreed that we need to establish an AP-like thing for Black people. Associated Press, they create all these news stories, they put them in a big cloud, and the whole news world just feeds off of them. And to the extent they can control the narrative or the shape of the narrative because it's a common source, don't have one of those things for Black people. Black Press USA exists for Black newspapers, but most Black newspapers that are in print don't belong to them, so they don't get that. There's a lot of independency things going on. So we said that we would propose to create a plan to build that Associated Press-like entity for Black people. And the objective is to put news stories in it, just like the Final Call has The Truth, news stories that the Black news media can depend on, and the Black community as a whole, at large can depend on, and more or less do a lot of the reporting work for them. But that's the whole idea, is to create that Associated Press type bubble and just make it work.
And see, and one of the things that we said as well is that we want to gather, as a follow-up, we want to gather all of the broadcasters, all of the communicators that we can, print media, electronic media, alternative media, all content providers that we can, because our concern is content, and our concern is establishing our own priorities, establishing our own central theme, and promoting that central theme as a group consistently. So that we want to gather all of the broadcasts, all of the content providers that we can, who will come, and form an informal network of communicators. And then those communicators will meet as a follow-up to this. The communicators would meet, and that those communicators would then establish from periodically, what is the central theme? Let's say they say the first thing we want to talk about is the fast food and how harmful it is to Black children, and how the industry has targeted Black youth for the consumption of toxic foods. And so we want to push back against so much fast food in the Black community, just as an example. And if we agreed with that, then all of the broadcasters in that network would begin to talk about that on their platforms, in their newspaper columns, on their radio shows, on their podcasts. Everybody would do that, and they would on their own look for guests that they can interview that's moving in the same direction, and then when they meet again, we establish, okay, now we want to talk about the importance and value of independent schools, and everybody starts to talk about that for that entire month as well. That becomes a central theme. And in that sense, we're able to establish and control the narrative in our own community.
That's it.
Right. We appreciate that. As I just explained to the folks who just did the family essence, we need for y'all to be communicating and come up with a written report and summary that we can put in our, include in our blueprint. Okay, let's move right along to economic development with Professor Ray Winbush and Adrian Hickman. Can you hear us, Professor? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, Siddiqui?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You know, at one time we had over 90 people in our group, and I was taking notes as fast as I can. It boiled down to about 5 points that we think were critical. The first one being is that we need to organize the organization relative to economics. We have a lot of organizations raising money, but they're not talking to each other. They're like in separate silos. So we talked about the importance of all these organizations talking to each other. The second thing we talked about was the issue of sacrifice that we have to be willing to give, you know, to these organizations that help our communities financially. And to that end, we put our money where our mouth is. We decided there was a sister in there, and we're going to, each of us that were in the chat room said that we were going to give $10 to www.r8i.org. That is an African, let me make sure I get, the African Diaspora Development Institute. It is online, and we said we were, again, going to put our money where our mouth is to raise money. I quoted the late Bobby Wright, who said that at all of our meetings, we should raise an offering. The third thing, we had a discussion about cryptocurrency. Frankly, I probably learned 90% of what I know about cryptocurrency from that discussion. Brother Keel was just marvelous about that. And several people talked about this being the next major move with the internet. The first being just getting on the internet. The second, which we're in right now, being the social, you know, Twitter, Facebook and stuff. And the third one is how do you switch money on, or how do you deal with money on the internet? So that was a big discussion. Another point was about financial education, that we need to teach our young people and older people how to manage their finances. We just need to become more financially literate. There was a sister, young sister there, said the young people ought to be involved with anything that the Nubian Leadership Circle does, which we are. The last category, we talked about international trade, and that was part of organizing the organization. But the idea that international trade in the form of cryptocurrency, as well as us reaching across the waters to Africa, the Caribbean, and other places to make sure that Black folk and African people are just talking about financial literacy. Adrian, you want to add anything that I may have missed?
Yes, sir. How you doing? And thank you, Brother Siddiqui. He did very well. Apologize for being late to the meeting. He didn't need my help. But we also came up with an idea where the brother mentioned, if we come up with a financial plan for a lot of our wealthy people, like the Oprahs and Robert E. Lees, that instead of just asking them for donations, if we kept develop a business plan that they can willingly invest into right away, that can speed up some things. And the other thing that I mentioned is that if we could subscribe for free to emediagc.com, we already have a built-in database of 4.3 million subscribers in the Gulf Coast region. So we can connect and start helping further the television and radio stations for people who have those desires and help control that narrative. I host a community defender. A friend of mine has a built-in database. So we decided to come together to try to put content together and reach an audience. And we would like to reach out to those on the East Coast, West Coast, and other regions, as well as internationally.
And one other thing I want to say, that one sister, Nadia Hippolyte, mentioned the issue that, you know, people that exploit our community. We talked a great deal about people who come into our community, Jewish people, Arabs, as well as Koreans, and that they give us our wants. They sell to us our wants, but we also need to talk about developing our needs, the thing we need. And I like the distinction between the needs and the wants of our community as well.
Okay.
Okay, Siddiqui. Look, folks, I gotta go because I gotta speak at ASCAG in a few minutes, but thank you very much, and carry on, and I'll be in touch.
Right, because we need for you and Adrian to come up with that written summary that's going to be part of the blueprint.
We will, no, most def.
And Adrian, based on what you said, it sounds like there's grounds there for you to consider, your folks considering sponsoring the summit. We'll talk about that later. All right, appreciate it, brothers.
Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Okay, we're going to move right along to land and food, and that would be Brother Eno Yabro and Kwabena Nkomo.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Land and food. Brother Eno, Brother Kwabena, you there? Well, I just saw your name in the chat there, Kwabena.
It's a different Kwabena, not me.
Yeah, oh, I know, Kwabena Nkomo. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, family. Yeah, I ended up doing it myself. Brother Inu still had technical issues getting into the actual summit. And so, yeah, just facilitated by myself. I hardly did the whole session by myself. I'm happy to report out. So we had an amazing experience. There was over 70 participants in our cadre. And I like to sort of generally talk about what we did. It was an incredible spirit of cooperation, very active participation, lots of involvement, a diverse set of views and interests, as well as for geography, we were really represented across the United States. We started out, the way we structured the experience is that we had general discussion for the first hour over the two concepts of the cadre, you know, sort of half an hour focused on land and relationship to Black people, African people. And then we shifted to food and just had a general conversation about food just to understand each other better and to get a flavor, no pun intended, of what we wanted to dig into as strategy to report out to this larger group. And then after that hour, where we got to know each other better and everybody kicked their feet up, we shifted over to strategy, and we came up with 25 basic focus areas to recommend, with the understanding that, you know, everything needs to be done, that we just thought about getting started. And then we also thought about taking these 25 areas and breaking them out into priorities of what's low-hanging fruit, things that we could do right away with the resources that are already in our possession. And then maybe another phase of things that might take more coordination, research, or assembly of some type of resources. So this list, I'm going to, let me just share some of the comments from the general discussion. And so I'm going to share some of these names so you can get a real sense of the participation, and I'll try to do it quickly. We had Yolanda from Washington, D.C. raise the question of how to make land fertile. We had Terry Muhammad from Macon, Georgia, talk about air property and land conservation, air property being property that's passed on from generation to generation. We had Annette from Augusta, Georgia, talk about educating our children about being outside and knowing nature firsthand. We had Sister Dora Muhammad from Boston, Massachusetts, talk about what land means freedom. And she has 6 acres in her family that she's working on doing something with. We had Marion from Atlanta, Georgia, talk about matching landowners who are maybe older landowners with those who farm with young. She talk about eco villages and the need not necessarily to have a bunch of land and to focus on growing fruit as a high nutrient form of food production, as well as permaculture. And then we have Michelle from Connecticut talk about her family's intention to very soon, if not today, move to Alabama, where she has 60 acres at her family's disposal. It's from Connecticut. And I can't remember the sister from New York who raised the idea about her name, about how to grow food in the city. So we had a whole discussion about urban agriculture specifically. And then Janelle Muhammad in Washington, D.C. talk about preparing food. She is a nutritionist by training, I believe. And she talked about preparing food which is nutrient dense as possible and as alive as possible, meaning not cooked, that cooking removes some of the nutrients in food. And this is the Vivian Muhammad from Indianapolis, Indiana. Actually, maybe missed her comments, but I just want to mention her name. I apologize, Sister Vivian. I must have skipped my note taking right there. And then Sister Robin from Providence, Rhode Island, talked about food inspector background lines have shifted and changed, and that we should be careful about not only food quality, seeds, and whether they are GMO or not. And then Sister Maria from San Diego, California, is originally from how the soil is contaminated in that area and the land is very expensive, and that they're working on food forest bartering and other strategies. Siddiqui, how much more time do I have for the report?
You got about 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay, then I'm just going to read this list of the strategy or the agendas that we're recommending to the group. And this is not an exhaustive list at all by any means, but it does include some of the best thinking out of this session. We are interested in doing stuff that has already proven to be critical, important, and doable. So in no particular order, renewable energy. You should be mindful of the bees and their critical role in the ecology, legal protections, unified database of information, land trusts, historically Black colleges and universities and their role in land and agricultural production, alternative communications, the ways for us to not be dependent upon the system. I think we heard some of that from another cadre. Fundraising, again, eco-villages, land acquisition, mechanics to work the land, mechanics being, I guess, machinery and equipment, using existing programs that are effective. Let's not reinvent the wheel. We had a specific discussion about the staple goods program of the Nation of Islam, and a recommendation that all of us become familiar and aware and support that program and work with it. Protecting what we built, so security, logistics, employment, alternative energy, training and education, Black farmers market and healthy water, feeding the homeless, opportunity zones and blockchain technology, community gardens, reverse migration from the north back to the south in the United States, nutritional value of food, networks, and we had a subset conversation in networks about asset assessment as a first step to see what we have to work with before we start thinking about what we need to get in place, and then clean soil and a specific strategy about establishing soil labs in our community to do soil analysis, spectrum analysis around contamination, as well as nutrient content of soil, so that we can make better choices about where to grow and how to grow safely. This is just a general flavor, and Baba Siddiqui, in the process of putting out the actual notes, I'll refine some of this information and put it some of the categories that I mentioned as the priorities and what have you.
Okay.
But this is the raw content for us.
We'll be looking.
raw content from our discussions. And again, it was cooperative and supported. Yes, sir.
Yep, we'll be looking for your summary report. Be part of the blueprint.
You
All right, appreciate that.
have a question?
No, we'll move on right to the next topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We'll be talking. All right, next we have health and education. And that would be Dr. Francine Chavis and Brother Tashango and Billy Shaka.
Hi, actually we ended up, I co-facilitated that. Me and my mom ended up having to co-facilitate. My name is Akila Witherspoon, and it was co-facilitated along with my mother, Chandra Witherspoon. And so we were in the cadre session for health and education. And I'm not as good as Brother Kwabena because I didn't write down everybody's names so that I can, highlight all of the participation that we had. But we had a really great discussion and a lot of collaboration on talking about what we can do, especially given that, health and education, it seems like they're two completely separate topics, but there's an underlying theme that goes together, and basically health and education are intertwined together. And so some of the things that we identified as what are the problems that we need to address are disparities. So there's lots of disparities. There's disparities in income, there's disparities in educational opportunities, there's disparities in access to technology resources. We talked about some of the things we need to focus on was a growth mindset. So kind of changing the mentality that we have around education and around health, and then how we operate together as a community in general, and just building up, confidence um, and a building block for education. We talked about mental health. You can't separate mental health from anything. Mental health is intertwined in our daily lives, and it impacts our health, and it impacts people's ability to learn and to absorb whatever education that they are getting. We talked about people needing to have a knowledge of self, and education is kind of the starting point for everything that we have going on here today, because we want to be able to educate people and teach people about what they need to know. So what are the what were some of the things that we talked about of as far as what we need to do? We talked about, you know, creating avenues for people to access resources. So taking advantage of technology. We have things like YouTube. So YouTube now is really, a lot of people say YouTube University because it has a lot of information on there. You have content creators that come up with all kinds of stuff that teach us, there's all kinds of topics. You can look it up on YouTube and it can be there. So we talked about our people having, channels and avenues to present this information and this knowledge. We talked about community building. So part of this is going to we're going to have to kind of go back and restructure how our communities are set up and teach people how to operate with one another and how to cooperate, because we can come up with all these ideas, but if we cannot execute them together, then it's not going to work. So we have to start with the children, start when they're young, and educate them on how to cooperate with each other. We talked about being able to share information. So information sharing, how can we share that information? So one of the sisters in the group talked about sharing Black books and Black authors, being able to share that resource list to our own personal networks. We talked about bringing back old methods of communication, such as handwriting. We get away from, when it comes to education, we can't get away from the basic building blocks. We have to keep those basics and those things that kind of those things help. We build on those. So handwriting, and it helps with like brain development and communication skills. We talked about let's see what else we talked about. So one of the biggest things that we talked about was having a mass exodus from the communication or from the educational system. So not leaving it up to those who do not care about us to educate our children. We have to take control over that. And part of that is educating the parents. So we found that during this time during coronavirus, when everyone had to take their children out of school and have them do distance learning, a lot of families were getting left behind because either the parents did not have the knowledge or the resources, or they didn't have the equipment at home. So we have to not only thinking about educating children, but also thinking about educating parents. We talked about there being different types of parents. So you have those parents who are more involved in the education, and they're the ones who are, looking up resources, making connections. And then you have some parents who don't know or they don't care. So we have to figure out how we're going to reach those parents that don't have that information and who are not as savvy. We talked about vaccines. So this time of coronavirus,
You got 1 minute, Akila.
you said 1 minute?
Yeah.
So vaccines was also a big concern that we talked about, and that impacts both health and education. Vaccines, education is predicated in some areas on your child receiving a vaccine. So we want to address that. And how can we address that? By, strengthening our own educational systems. And also we have lots of groups working together. And so we might not all have the same philosophies, but we can still have an infrastructure that we can follow together, and we can plug in our own personal belief systems or things that we want our specific communities to know. But overall, as a Black community, we have to come up with a whole cohesive educational plan and figure out how we can take our children out of that system and create our own.
Mhm.
Thank
So,
you.
did Dr. Chavis and China, did they have technological problems?
I do not know.
No,
They were not in our session.
I saw her earlier. Well, maybe we can connect yourself and your mom and them to come up with you can share that information and come up with the final report. Okay, we're now going to go to spiritual renewal, and that would be Student Minister Rodney Muhammad of the Nation of Islam and Brother Jabari.
Thank you so much, Brother Siddiqui. It was an honor to share this particular workshop. Unfortunately, our brother was not able to co-facilitate. So my wife, she stepped in and filled in that slot. We covered a lot of issues, and people even called from London, some of our people. That's how far they reached out. What is spirituality?
Minister Rodney, your sound is distorted.
Now?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Am I clear now? Is that better? Hello?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we talked about what can we do to improve our spiritual renewal. Some of the points were we need more prayer. Think 5 times before we act. Study more. Also, renewal is when we get quiet and we increase our communication to Allah, God, whatever name we call him, to be still. Reflection, be quiet at times, to have gratitude, count our blessings. And for our youth, we can communicate to them through music, the proper music. Some of the other points, there was a lot of points that were made. I was trying to write as fast as I could. Learn to deny ourselves. If our people see us deny ourselves for material things, then our people will notice that there is more to life. Fight the devil from within ourselves and be a model for our people. One person quoted Romans 12, chapter 2, about changing our mindset, transform our minds, apply what we know. The other point was propose purpose of spiritual renewal, to be able to see spirituality in others, they have to go to a list, at least have 10 things that we can use to help boost and increase our spirituality. Read the holy books, especially Proverbs. What can we do in regards to our spirituality? Those are some of the things they mentioned. And what keeps us away from spirituality? The lack of trust, pride. We have to kill our appetite for indecency, ego, past trauma, not wanting to follow guidance, lack of atonement, no repentance, lack of faith, lack of obedience to God's law, lack of work. We have all the answers, but we don't like to follow instructions. And this is why our people are in the condition they're in. We need to sacrifice our lives for the upliftment and liberation of our people. How can we overcome difficulty through spiritual renewal? Under that title, the response was, let the word renew you. Do not give up. Have the heart and the quality of redemption to want to improve. We must realize that these schools are the killing fields of our children. What is the prevention? What is preventing us from growing? We need to know our history, lack of trust, past trauma, not believing in ourselves. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan describes women as the subconscious mind. So we have been traumatized, and this decreases our confidence in ourselves to have the ability to rise. Now that we have the word, we have to shed the old mind and put on the new mind. We need to read books and get more knowledge. Why is spirituality, spiritual renewal so important? To renew our spirituality suggests that we lost something that we had at one time. We need to reconnect, and we need to reconnect with the God. Live the example. If we say we believe in a higher power, we need to prove it by our actions, make good use of time, build spiritual renewal by studying and prayer.
Okay, you got 1.5 minutes, Minister Rodney.
Okay, wow. Youth. The youth are 30% our population, but 100% our future. We can't give up on our youth. They need to be taught that they have a purpose in life. They are a God. We have lost the authority over our children through the schools, television, music, and our children are being bombarded by falsehood to be frivolous instead of great. We need to build schools, and we need separation. We need hospitals, and we need farmland. We need all of that necessary to build a nation. Learn to make a sacrifice for our children. Our children need to see us as role models. Defend our children, not allowing the teachers, principals to kick our children out of school, and then build our own schools so we can teach them the proper knowledge. Youth need love, support, guidance from the elders. We need to be Black men and stand up as fathers. Spiritual renewal. Be relikable. Youth, let them know that we did not fall from heaven, and talk to them in a way that you can relate to them. We must be very genuine. Our children can feel us if we're faking, and we need to be real and give them the true love that they need in order for them to exercise the powers that God has put in them.
30 seconds.
Oh, so that's the 30 seconds in a blueprint. Meditate and self-reflect. Be an example. Educate and nurture the youth. Make music positive. Community. show real love, read the Quran and read the Bible, and teach parents how to use their skills to produce great giants for the liberation of our people. I guess I'll stop there.
All right, Mr. Rodney.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more copy to go, which would be art and culture, Brother Farrakhan, and then also Marlon Forrester. No, that's the wrong Farrakhan. We got two Farrakhans. Okay, here we go. You all set, Farrakhan?
Yeah, I'm ready. Is Marlon with me too?
Don't see Marlon.
Okay. All right, maybe he's there too. But we talked about quite a bit. We listened.
Here we go. Yes. All right, I'm here, brother.
You there? Okay, Marlon, talk about those a couple of those points, man. I'll chime in with you.
So today our group was a really diverse group. I'm just going to kind of jump into we have about 6 points that we looked at. The first point that we looked at from the perspective of art is to look at it through curriculum. And so one of the things we talked about is arts and education, primarily looking at creating curriculum that is Black or Afro-centered for elementary, middle, and high school. We also looked at it from a position of art institutions. We looked at the idea around museums and galleries supporting artists of color, but also celebrating work that speaks to that rich cultural history. We looked at art from the idea of media and social forms that relate to copyright laws. Who owns the right to the image of people of African descent, whether it's our young people who are doing music, and how long is that copyright and ownership? Is that perpetual? It's for perpetuity, or is it short term? And so what are those laws and how can we change who has the rights to those? We also looked at it from, the perspective of arts and cultural centers, thinking about creating cultural centers or these, we were thinking about them as nodes or hubs throughout the nation where we can disseminate curriculum as well as function as institutions for teaching and for policy creation. We also looked at it from the perspective of global institutions and also reaching out to Africa, right? Working in concert with the African Arts Collective there to think about creating an institution on the ground in Africa that is a meeting place for us to have a commonality around how art is used, whether it's the dance, the music, and the social media, all platforms of art. Primarily, art itself also goes into design thinking, whether it's through architecture, urban design. We're talking about clothing. We're talking about even the tradition of ceramics and wood making. Those are also areas in terms of how we can bring that back to America, right? What's been lost, how can we bring that back? And thinking also about art through working with our young people here on the streets. Hey, listen, you know what? You have an interest, we can take you from the streets of Harlem or the streets of Chicago, and we can take 10 of you, and we'll put you in an art institution here in Africa or in South America or in some other country that gives you, primarily in Africa, our focus, but gives you a sense of, the rich cultural history that you're coming from.
You got
right?
4 minutes left, Molly.
Okay, I'm gonna move a little bit faster. We don't need to kill each other. We can express each other through these different mediums. Quickly, last but not least, thinking about vocational education, right? Going back to carpentry, to the plumbing, all those other aspects that have been kind of taken out of the schools. And last but not least, looking at the televised manhood formula, which is looking at how the sports industry uses the body and controlling that through the NCAA, controlling it through ESPN, all those different medias and forms, and really controlling how the image of us is perpetrated, whether through campaigns, through media, and popular culture.
Yes, sir.
And you know, when we look at all of this, I'm kind of glad we were last because, you know, culture reflects everything we've been talking about so far. When we talk about communications, economic development, some of the things Marlon talked about, we're gonna need some economics to get our people over to Africa. We're gonna need some sacrifice to do that, you know, to expand our knowledge and our culture in that sense. But culture is everything. And right now, we're in a crisis when it comes to the aspect of culture, which is our music. And so we know we had to, you know me, we're gonna talk about this. We work with the Clear the Airways Project, and we brought up our struggle, shared our struggle with this music that's being force-fed to the masses of our children and our youth, which drops N-bombs on them constantly, which calls our sisters B's and H's and brags about us shooting and killing each other, and the straight pornography. And so that is having a very major impact on our youth and our people. So we shared some of the issues that we're dealing with right now to combat that. And we even asked the group when we were talking to kind of like, you know, let's put some commitment into stopping this and to making a change to stop this because of this impact on us. We also shared in the chat the Clear the Airways Project so people can look at it and see some of the work we're doing with the FCC and also with the community in order to put a stop to this. We got radio stations, again, all around the country that are promoting this violent music. I live in the Chicago area, and so we have petitions against the 2 European-owned radio stations. There are African-owned radio stations too, but against the 2 European-owned radio stations to take their license. And so we're waiting to hear back from the FCC. They've been delayed in getting back to us, but in the meantime, we as a people also need to step up and put a stop to it. So we got some information on there chronicling that. Working with the National Black Leadership Alliance, we also shared a code of behavior that we put forth, which is a code of culture, where we talked about how it's important that we respect ourselves and do not allow unhealthy ideas into our heads. Don't put unhealthy substances, drugs, excessive liquor, excessive food, and disease in our bodies. We must truly love ourselves and respect ourselves. The people who love us have to be able to trust us, so we have to be trustworthy. Only use respectable and loving language in the presence of our elders and children. These are the type of cultural things that we need. How much time I got?
You got 1 minute.
Okay, I can look through a couple more of these. Honor the daughters of our people. Do not use vulgar or degrading terms when addressing our daughters. Always protect our women and children, our family, and our community. Do not stir up strife with lies and gossip. Be worthy of our mother's love. Don't let your mother love you only because you're her child. Our life should be one of dignity and self-respect. That's the type of cultural things that we need to deal with and have. So, you know, it was a good piece. We need to, again, move forward and deal with this crisis. This is a crisis in our culture. And it's just, I want to emphasize that not enough, that we have to do some work and stop these mass media beasts, get them off the backs of our children with this violent, pornographic, drug-laced, materialistic music. We have to deal with that.
Yes, sir. All right, you know, I want to really say asante sana. Thank you to all the folks who serve as co-facilitators. I understand this is just the first phase, that the intent is to continue to have you all to communicate and come up with that written summary that we need that's going to be part of the blueprint. So I don't want anybody to relax. And in fact, I should be planning to communicate with your fellow facilitators in terms of making that happen. We'll be discussing that. So myself, I really appreciate what I heard from the folks who are serving in that capacity, and we're going to build on that. We're going to build on that. It's going to be part of the blueprint. And it's going to make it happen, circulate it all across the country. So now we are at almost 2:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, you know, this has been a very productive time. And now we're entering the phase that I know a lot of folks are looking forward to. We're talking about a person who's a longtime friend and a brother in the struggle, Minister Louis Farrakhan, who has graciously agreed to, in fact, do the closing remarks for our summit. And so I'm really pleased to announce that, and I'm sure that everybody is prepared to hear from this great brother who has dedicated his life to Black people. So with that, is the minister prepared to come on? Okay, because we were scheduled to come on at 2 o'clock. Brother Hassan there, or? Okay,
He is with us and will be coming on in just a moment.
okay, thank you very much there, Michelle. And that, while we're waiting for the minister, let me just say that I really appreciate the work that folks have done to make this happen, and particularly in building the Nubian Leadership Circle. And I think folks would really look at the fact that, this was done by Black people. This whole piece and everything that's going on is done by Black people. We're not writing grants or what have you. And like, for instance, with the sister here, Michelle, with her company, I think it's what Let's Play Ultimate Events, or I believe that's the name, that has done an excellent job around the whole tech piece. We've got a tech committee, and these are all folks who've given up their time, to in fact.
What am I supposed to see?
Oh, I think I hear a familiar voice.
You're live, dear minister.
Brother Minister Farrakhan, glad to see you, sir.
Thank you, Brother Siddiqui. I'm really happy to see you as well.
Yeah, we just completed this phase in terms of the summit aspect, and we made it very clear that this is just the beginning round of work. And so we said, well, it looks like it's time for the minister. So, everybody's looking forward to that, sir. So we turn the stage over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Siddiqui. I enjoyed every minute. I visited every cadre. I heard at least 10 to 15 minutes of each of them, and I was deeply moved and impressed. But before I say anything, I want to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness to the oneness of God and to the oneness of his people and to the oneness of the human family. I greet all of you, my beloved brothers and sisters, with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. To Brother Siddiqui, Bob Law, and Brother Jay, Dr. Jay Winbush, and all of the wonderful presenters, I am so inspired by what I saw and by what I heard. Dr. Faye Williams and all of you that presented. It was a learning experience for me. Because when you work a long time in the vineyard with your people, and this is my 67th year working in this vineyard, and I read once in the Bible, cast your bread upon the waters, and after many days, you see it coming back to you. I thank Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I thank him for what he gave to me to give to you and to our people throughout the world. I thank him and the God who raised him for their intervention in our affairs. And now, after listening to each of you with rapt attention, I saw a great future for our people coming through you. Thank you, Brother Siddiqui, and all of those who worked with you to make the vision that you had reality. I have known Brother Siddiqui for a long, long time. He's not a man that promotes himself as such, but I would like to say something about what he's doing, what he desires to do, and what all of us can help him and those with him to do. Oh, back in the 80s, I believe it was, I had just come back from overseas, and I knew that as a people, we were struggling, and I knew that we needed to pull our people together like we are today, organizational leaders, our critical thinkers, and sit down to talk about the problems that we face and develop solutions for those problems. I didn't think that the Nation of Islam at that time could provide that umbrella for all of the organizations and organizational leaders to find that comfortable spot with. So my brother, Dr. Ben Chavis, and my dear lawyer and friend, Lou Myers, had become the two principals of the NAACP. And since I was nurtured by reading the writings of W.E.B. Du Bois in the Crisis magazine that my mother nurtured me with, I felt that the NAACP could be and should be the one to call our leaders and organizations together. And I broached the subject to Reverend Dr. Ben Chavis and Lou Myers, and I asked them would they do it. And they did it, and the NAACP hosted Black organizations, Black leaders, Black historians, Black thinkers, and we met in Baltimore, Maryland. And out of that meeting, a new organization was established. It was called NAILS, and NAILS meant the National African American Leadership Summit. And we went forward from that day in Baltimore, so charged that we knew that with this kind of organizational effort, and I'm talking about people in a room with various religious, ideological persuasions, some friends, some not so friendly, but we did it with the help of God and the help of the NAACP. And we went away feeling we had made a good start. Outside the door was a rabbi who was noting all those who came, but the rabbi's anger was because I was in the group. And I'm sure you all know that Farrakhan is not loved in that circle. And at the same time, they hated the fact that all these Black leaders and organizations were in one room, and Farrakhan was in the room with them. It seems like Farrakhan has a disease, and it's not COVID, it's not AIDS, it's just being too Black, too strong, and too much in love with the word of God coming through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm in love with you. I can't help myself. I could never betray you. I'm anxious to prove my love for you through living and dying. For that which is bigger than I and you, but never bigger than us. And I'm so grateful to be here with you, to listen carefully to what you said, and to see Dr. Ray Winbush, Dr. Bob Law, Dr. Faye Williams, and all of you that spoke and headed up each cadre. I'm deeply, deeply touched. And so I wanted to say that Siddiqui Cambone has offered me the chance to speak at many things that he organized. Last year, he asked me to participate, and I realized that what he wanted to do was revive NAILS, a National Black Leadership Summit. And as I learned from each one of you that spoke, all the beautiful ideas that gushed forth from your lips and your hearts and your minds, I know that we have arrived at a certain point in our development now that we can become the greatest gift to our people and the biggest threat to the enemy who hates to see our rise. He can't help himself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught me that a rising force pulls apart and destroys a falling force. And since this world is falling and we are rising, we are the force that's helping them to break apart. I won't go into that because that's not my talk today. But it is you and I and we coming into a level of consciousness that causes us to rise. We're influencing our babies, we're influencing art, we're influencing culture, we're influencing science and technology. We are upsetting a world. And that's what disturbs me now, because the enemy sees in his fall and our rise that the end of white supremacy and its power over people of color is come to an end. And so what is his mind? What is he thinking? Over our beautiful planet, he has ruled 9/10 of it. And the other 10th doesn't know that he got them too. He's mastered religion. You can say you're a Christian, but he runs that. You can say you're a Jew, he runs that. You can say you're a Muslim, he runs that. You can say whatever you want to say, but he runs it all to our detriment. And as long as we gave the energy of our talent, the energy of our being to his world, he thrived. But today, what I heard from you, no, you want to give that energy to your beautiful Black self. When I heard my sister talk about how somebody just took them in the house and showed them how to sew and showed them how to knit, and others, you don't need your enemy, you need God and yourself, and we need each other. So now we are in danger. We've been in danger for a long time. When I first became a Muslim follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1955 and came into Mosque number 7 under the tutelage of Brother Malcolm, there was a book out then called We Charge Genocide. And Brother Malcolm had us to read that book. Brother Malcolm had us to read J.A. Rogers, 100 Amazing Facts about the Negro, from Superman to Man. And he had us reading economic books. He had us thinking on another level. And anytime we begin thinking and learning to love ourselves, the end of his world is nigh. So when Nails got started, and I think the rabbi's name was Rabbi Saperstein, who was outside watching us. After the third time we met, we began to feel the effect of money on Black organizations, the effect of their philanthropy. When they feel threatened, then they will threaten us. Farrakhan shouldn't be in that meeting. Sorry. He's a hater. He's an anti-Semite. He's anti-gay. He's, oh my God, Farrakhan is anti-everything. Well, now if you want to meet, if you want your meeting to survive, we got to have money to support our organizations. You don't know this, but Brother Akbar, my wonderful friend and longtime associate and helper, we were together in Libya with Brother Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi said to me, Brother Farrakhan, when we are off of the sanctions that America has on us, we're going to put the Nation of Islam in our national budget each and every year. That's great news, because Gaddafi gave a lot of money to the Palestinians and to other organizations, but now he was going to give it to the Nation of Islam. You don't know this, but you should know your brother. When I asked Ben Chavis to call us all together under the aegis of the NAACP, I'm a Muslim, but I love the NAACP. Why you love them? Because they nurtured me. Why do you love Black organizations? Because every one of us has something to offer the struggle. You can't say that you got it all or I got it all, but together we have it all. And until we think for the whole and not for a few of us getting this or that, we'll be the loser. So Elijah Muhammad said to me, think for the whole, speak for the whole. And so they took Gaddafi off of the sanctions, and he turned over all his weapons of mass destruction to Bush. And Brother Akbar will tell you, I wrote a beautiful letter that we carried to Gaddafi. In that letter, I laid out to him my thinking. I know that the NAACP could be more powerful than it is if it didn't depend on outside forces to give money. So when you were talking today about economics and how we have to sacrifice, nobody gives the nation nothing but our people. I'm free to go anywhere in the world because I'm supported by the Nation of Islam. Yeah. I have helped every Black organization that has ever asked me for money, asked me for help. I've sent others all over the world to conferences. I've helped other organizations that were dying with some of the money that these believers that were on this program today give to me. Because I don't see the nation as this little group of people. We are the nation. And the only thing that we are missing is the unity of the whole of us, for all of us, and as a catalyst for the whole Black nation all over the earth to rise when we rise. So Akbar, he may be listening, I don't know, but we went to Libya. Gaddafi was out from under the sanctions. And I said to my brother, I reminded him of his promise. And sometimes when you remind people when they made a promise, but I didn't know another promise was made because Bush would not let him off the hook until he declared he will not give to aid the Nation of Islam. He was a helper to Elijah Muhammad. He was a helper to Louis Farrakhan. Elijah Muhammad borrowed $4 million and bought the mosque in Chicago and paid him back at $75,000 a month. I borrowed $5 million to go into personal care products for the nation. I put it in a Black bank. I went to Black companies. Come on, let's build these personal care products. After a while, the enemy went to Mr. Johnson of the great Johnson Products and told him that if you did anything for Farrakhan, we'll take all your products off the shelf. Do you know the enemy? Do you really know the enemy? Do you really think he's happy to see what you're doing today? Do you really think that he will not hesitate to destroy us when he sees his end in sight? So my concern today is not the beautiful thinking. My concern today is, do you really know your enemy? Because some of us fell out with Elijah Muhammad because he referred to the white man as the devil. The devil is real. He raises hell. And in the church, you say, the devil is a liar. And ever since we've been in his hands, he's told us nothing but lies about ourselves, nothing but lies about God, lies about our people in Africa, to keep us all divided against ourselves, and we are still sick from his poison. But we're cleaning it up. Before Elijah Muhammad left, he gave us a subject. How strong is the foundation? Can we survive? All that we did today, all that we heard today says we're on the move. We are rising. One day, Elijah Muhammad called me on the telephone. I used to broadcast, Bob Law knows this very well, my beautiful big brother. I was so popular in New York, this is the truth, because we had a broadcast every Sunday from the temple number 7. And there was the minister blazing. Well, I got it from a blazer that went before me. Did you know that in my heated talk, Brother Malcolm as my teacher, everywhere I went with Brother Malcolm, he didn't waste no time exposing the devil. So that became the talk, everybody. Malcolm X, he whooped the white man coming and going, and you know it, because he affected practically everyone in this circle. Brother Malcolm affected everybody with his teaching. Real talk. You didn't know the white man like he knew him. And Malcolm made sure all of us knew him. And we got uncomfortable. When I was his young student in New York, I used to watch the intellectuals, the learned ones. When Brother Malcolm was speaking on 125th Street and 7th Avenue at Elder Mishaw, Mishaw's bookstore, big gatherings, Malcolm would lay it down. And the learned ones would come, stay across the street, hear Brother Malcolm, and keep on stepping. Real talk. But after a while, they understood him. and they loved him. But to love Malcolm, you couldn't love the enemy. Once you came under his teaching, we respect the enemy, but love, no, 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 no. Love was for you. Love was for us who learned to hate each other from his teaching to us. But now we're wide awake. Did you know Elijah Muhammad called me one day? He said, brother, I don't want you to use that term devil anymore. In fact, the week before that, I was beating the enemy so bad over the radio in New York. He called me and said these words, brother, I wish you'd stop throwing trash in a well I'm trying to get a drink of water out of, and hung up the phone. I said, well, I was just teaching the teachings. What's the trash? See, trash is something, the residue. You've eaten the best part of it, but the trash is the covering, the packaging, and you can't eat the packaging, so you throw it away. He didn't tell us other than the truth, but what he told us in another way, he said the white man made us other than ourselves. Wasn't that a nice way to say it? In other words, he made us into himself. So I can't say the white man is the only devil. Who's been hanging us up? Who's been betraying our movement? Who is it you are fighting? Each of us have to fight in order to get progress. You got to fight your own. Because in your own, there's envy, enmity, jealousy, strife. You know what I'm talking about. We're so hard on each other. Only God could love a people like this. And somebody that's in love with you. Somebody that can hang with you when you want to hang the person that loves you because you don't love yourself. So Elijah Muhammad said, yes, brother. Called me the next time and he said, brother, I want you to use this language. I want you to use the word Satan, the enemy, the slave master's children. Now what he's doing, he's bringing me up into the knowledge of the devil maker. Satan is not just a wicked person. He's so wicked that his wickedness spreads from him to others. Now I'll come right back to you. I'm not going to stay long. We're in a survival mode today, brothers and sisters, because all the plans that we have to do good for ourselves and our people, if we don't survive, we can't do it. And we live now in the valley of the shadow of death. And what I met when I first came in the nation, we charge genocide.
Yes, sir.
They want to kill an entire people because we are the next inheritors of rulership over the planet. He already knows this. He knows our future, but he don't intend for us to see that future. He's upset because we are rising. Oh, look how much we gave to the Democratic Party. We've always given them our best shot, but we never got what we deserved. And Mr. Joe Biden has wanted to be president since he first entered Congress. His desire was to be president. He tried a few times and lost. He was giving it up until Charlottesville, Virginia, and the Nazis and the haters of Jews came out, and somebody got run over with a car, and he decided he'd get back in the race. And when he got back in the race, people laughed. Laughed because he was too old. Laughed because he's the oldest man to ever become president of the United States. But when he went to South Carolina, our brother, the great brother who helped him take his campaign up out of the doldrums. You know who I'm talking about. Congressman Clyburn. And from that day, his campaign kept going up, 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 up. And now, our people wanted Mr. Trump out of there. I have never seen Black people talk about a white president like our people talked about Mr. Trump. I heard my beautiful sister, Maxine Waters, at the funeral of Dick Gregory, that thing over there, called him a thing. And the man, when he became president, our brother from Georgia, the one who just passed away recently, John Lewis, didn't even recognize him. Said he's illegitimate, right? Do you remember that? Y'all remember that? You can check it out. He wasn't legitimate. And then Busta Rhymes came out at a rap with a gun. Was it Busta? Snoop. Snoop shot the gun at him, and Busta called him the Orange Man. And Trump called him Sleepy Joe. The biggest slap in the face to Trump was when the man he called Sleepy Joe became the president-elect of the United States of America and called a Black woman to his side. She ain't no lightweight. Kamala Harris is a heavyweight. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And look at how white folks are thinking right now. She's a heartbeat away from being the first Black president. Yes, sir. If he dies while in office, so white folks are upset. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They see our rise. And we are witnessing their fall. And now we have to survive because the death plan is in motion. What is the death plan? You say, well, Black folks are the most prone to the COVID virus. Why is that? Because of the comorbidity conditions, diabetes, heart failure, obesity. Name all the comorbidity problems, we lead in that. Well, let me ask you this. How did we get in this condition? Did you know that there's food that they prepare for you and me in the hood, that they kill us by zip code? When they know your zip code, they send the worst food in for us to consume. Talk to me. Yes, sir. Flint, Michigan is not an accident. Yes, sir. They're killing us through the water. You're a young man and have erectile dysfunction. I'm not meaning to be vulgar, but our old folks died with the ability to make a baby. Yes, sir. You need pills. You're already on death row and don't even know it. So now you're a perfect host for the COVID virus. And that's why it's killing us. But it's not that we don't have the means to do that. We don't really need a vaccine. We need more vitamin D. Hey, brothers and sisters, I have my African sister talking earlier. We're talking about our people in the Caribbean, in the little island that my mother is from. I think they had 15 deaths from the COVID virus. Do you know why the virus is not hitting the Caribbean like it's hitting America and Europe? Because we live in the sun. Yes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me that in the sun there are billions of vitamins that you can't get in anything that is created except through the sun. Right. So when you live on the inside and don't go out in the sun, have no love for the sun to lay in it and bathe in it. My teacher taught me, take a bath at least once a year in the sun. Go someplace where you can take your clothes off and turn again. And when you've turned enough, your body has accepted billions of vitamins into it. And when the day of disease comes, the vitamins rise up to defend us against disease. That's why in the Caribbean, they're not worried about a pandemic down there. So is it time for me to go, right? Huh? Oh, well, I don't want to belabor this point. But now we are so frightened over this COVID. Now they're getting us ready for the vaccine. Brothers and sisters, do you believe that Satan is concerned about vaccinating you about this thing here? Come on, brothers and sisters. You trust him. After all that he's done to destroy us, you trust him. And your trust is sickening because you love your enemy and you hate yourself and your friend. How could you allow him to stick a needle into you saying he's helping you?
Teach.
Well, we have black people that are in the trials. They're in this part and that part, and they're telling us it's okay. There are things that he brings you right into and blinds you at the same time because he lets you see what he wants you to see.
Yes, sir.
And he lets you know what he wants you to know. And he keeps you blind to the thing that he doesn't want you to know because he does not want you to warn your people against his plots.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on.
Do you know they took me down from YouTube? I know y'all were talking about YouTube today. It's a great thing. You use it as best you can. But my July 4th message called The Criterion, anybody that got that message, he's pulling them down.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's wrong with the minister? You talking all your stuff. Why can't the minister tell us the view of Elijah Muhammad on these vaccines? I'm off. Boyce Watkins is off. Ben X is off. Abdul Qiyam is off. What have I done but tell you the truth? None of you can say to me that I'm a liar.
No,
you know darn well you ain't never caught me in a lie.
Right. Go ahead.
But that daggone devil that you listening to, he's a liar from the beginning to the end. So the Bible say, if Satan cast out Satan, how can his kingdom stand?
Go ahead,
So now you got 74 million people voted for Mr. Trump.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And 83 million for Mr. Biden. They're all divided.
Yes.
Satan is casting out Satan.
Yes.
Where do you stand in this? You better hurry and get yourself together, because all those things that you talked about today, gardens in the community, putting gardens on the roof, learning how to feed yourself. Because if you grow the food, you know what's in it.
That's right.
Did you know that corporate America has bought up tens of thousands of acres of land? And do you know that they've made so many atomic weapons that the residue of the atomic weapons they have put into steel drums and buried it in the oceans? 30 years ago in the Sudan, the president was called Numeri, and he got a deal with America to take some of the drums and bury it in the sand, and they would get money. Did you hear me? Now the drums are being compromised by the power of water. So this stuff is escaping into the water, poisoning the food that we get from the water. And he's got now residue, they call it toxic waste. Did you know that they've put toxic waste that is from the nuclear waste over large tracts of land? Do you know that they growing food under soil that is toxic, poison with nuclear stuff? Did you know that the food that you're eating is killing you? Did you know that the water that you're drinking is killing you? You like to eat fast food? Fast food is death food. You don't know. I mean, you trust so much your enemy, and you're so fearful of a man that will tell you the truth. You will listen to me, and then you go back to being the same person. Yes. Ain't nothing that you've talked about that I haven't taught on. That's right. The depth of it. Yes, sir. You don't know me. Teach. Come on. You might listen to one thing here, one thing there. Farrakhan, my man. Farrakhan, oh yeah, Farrakhan, my man. Yeah, I'm your man. Teach, dear minister. I've been your man for a long, long time. Yes, sir. But what do you do with your man? You listen and you go on about your business. You listen, you have meetings. Do you think when they had these meetings with all the leaders, do you think they invite the nation? Come on. Well, no, don't let Farrakhan come up in here. Because if Farrakhan come up in here, white folk gonna give us a problem. Well, they're giving you a problem now, and it's gonna get worse. You can't throw me away. No, sir. Even if you want to. Come on. God ain't gonna let it happen. Yes, sir. So I think I should get ready to go. I got 10 more minutes. Teach, dear minister. Look, beloved family, all the wonderful things you talked about today, we got to put it into practice, but we got to live. Those of you who are health professionals, they want you to take it first. Teach. And then they'll say to you, if it ain't moving good enough, you notice they're offering you money now? Come on, dear minister. Go ahead. When has this devil ever offered you $1,000 or $1,500 to take a shot? Teach, dear minister. Teach. Teach. They give you free shots of toxic waste. Yes, sir. Free. My God. The same lead that's in the water in Flint is in the water in Detroit, is in the water in Cleveland. You watch, it's in the water in Chicago. You ain't free. Teach them. You on a death watch. If you don't understand it, you're not going to be here to do all the wonderful things you talked about. I want you to live. I want you to live. God wants you to live. But if you refuse knowledge, if you love the enemy so much and are afraid of him, because he'll tell you, well, all right, if you don't take this vaccine, you can't work here. Right. Well, hell, that's all you had when they brought us here to work. But you got nothing for it. So now you got a little job. But you're going to have to learn to walk away from something that's killing you and do something for yourself. The unity that's here. We can do things to feed and clothe and shelter ourselves. Don't let them make you afraid. Well, if you don't show that you're vaccinated, you can't come to school. What a blessing.
Great. Go ahead.
What a blessing.
Yes.
Tell the cracker, I ain't coming to your school. When you tell me I can't go to your school, I open up a school of my own. You got the knowledge. You have the wisdom. You can teach your people. Like the sister said earlier, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you can have a university under a tree if you're teaching the knowledge of the universe.
Right.
Come on, brothers and sisters. And to Siddiqui, I hope I've not hurt anybody's feelings, you know. But that's me. I can't help myself.
That's right.
I didn't write a note.
Not one. Not one.
I just decided let God show me how to talk to you today, because I can conclude now. Mr. Joe Biden told you because we backed him, he said, I have your back. Did he say it? When I heard that, I said, it's over.
Yes, sir.
Because he used the wrong word. He said, I.
Yes, sir.
And if you remember the conversation between Franklin Delano Roosevelt and A. Philip Randolph and the Negro leaders of that day, they laid out a tough thing at the president's table. And the president didn't answer. He gave them all a cigar and they lit it up. Yeah. And then he said, now, I don't have anything against anything that you all have said, because you all spoke the truth. He said, now go and make me do it. Because no one white man, no matter how good his intention is, can give you what you need. It's got to be a we, or the I means nothing. So when he said, I got your back, he didn't say, we got your back.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
He means good.
Yes, sir.
But meaning good ain't gonna save the day.
Yes. Right.
You gotta mean good for yourself. We gotta mean good for one another. I'm in love with you. I can't help myself. I'm slowing down now, But damn it, if you call me out to say something, don't expect no man pussyfooting around with the truth. I can't do it.
No, sir.
I gotta tell it to you like it is,
Yes, sir.
whether you like it or not, whether you hate me or not. I love you.
Yes, sir.
And when you tell me you love me more, I'll tell you you lie.
Yes, sir.
Because if you love me more, then you won't die for me, but I'm dying for you every day that I live.
Yes, sir.
So you're gonna get up from here and let's make this national summit bigger. In fact, Siddiqui, we should do it every 3 months.
Yes, sir.
And add more of your giants, your leaders.
Yes.
Get the NAACP, tell them, come on. Bob Law can help.
Yes.
And I tell you, I have an assistant minister that is blazing on Sunday. Tune in to him tomorrow, NOI.org.
Yes, sir.
He has a message for you. Don't think that the Nation of Islam is Louis Farrakhan alone.
Come on.
I've been working 67 years and I'm I gotta go sometime. But what good is it if you're good and you didn't make some good people behind you? Leadership is that you create from yourself your replacements.
Yes, sir.
May Allah bless you. I hope I said it all. Oh, she corrected me. Thank you. She said there are 15 cases, 27 cases, but 0 deaths on the island that gave birth to my mother, St. Kitts in the Caribbean.
Yes, sir. And Kamala Harris, first Black female president, if she becomes president.
If she becomes. What did I say?
You said our first Black president, sir.
Black female president.
Yes, sir, dear minister. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you, dear minister.
And last but not least, I got 3 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Remember the Million Man March.
Yes, sir.
It took all of us working together to make that great, great day. That's a template
Yes. Yes.
for how we can do what we need to do.
Come on.
Reverend Jackson was not with the march at first, bless his heart,
Yes, sir.
but he finally came.
Yes, sir.
And I was so happy because he was one of the first ones I wrote a letter to telling him I wanted him by my side with the Million Man March.
Yes, sir.
I wrote a letter to Imam Warithuddin Muhammad,
Yes, sir.
asked him come stand with me. He didn't come. Reverend Jackson came. In my hotel suite, Reverend Jackson asked me, Farrakhan, how long can I speak? I said, Reverend Jackson, I can't give you any time. You speak until you finish what you have to say.
Yes, sir.
Ain't no Negro gonna do that.
No, sir.
In fact, when they invited me to speak, they gave me a minute.
Yes, sir.
Yes, they did.
Sir.
I took 5 extra.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
And they were trying to pull my coat to sit me down.
Wow, sir.
And in those 6 minutes, the Washington Post said, my speech that day on the 20th anniversary of the March on Washington
Yes, sir.
was the speech that carried the day.
Yes, sir.
Look, beloved, we can do it, but we got to do it together.
Yes, sir.
The Million Man March, you have never seen so many Black women at a Million Man March. This dais was full of Black women that loved what we were trying to do. Among them was Mrs. Betty Shabazz, Brother Malcolm's wife. You may not know this, but the FBI had planned for Kabila to be in trouble. A plot, they said, that she was involved with a Jewish white man to kill Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
And the FBI came to my door in Chicago
Yes, sir.
and told me that at 11 o'clock there'll be a press conference. They're announcing something about an assassination attempt on Farrakhan.
Yes, sir. Amen.
When we turned the thing on at 11, it was my sister, Kabila Shabazz, with this Caucasian. And then they naturally, now they wanting me to go crazy.
Yes, sir.
I did.
Hmm.
We contacted Betty Shabazz. I don't believe that her daughter meant me no harm.
Yes, sir.
We raised money
Yes, sir.
for Kabila,
Yes, sir.
Betty, and I think Bob was there at the Apollo Theater in New York.
Come on.
We stood together.
Yes,
White folks went crazy
Yes, sir.
because they love it when you hate one another.
That's right.
They love to feed your beefs. Not with me.
Come on.
You don't hear me talking about nobody that's
right.
Black that's talking against me.
That's right.
No, I don't.
That's right.
I can take it if it's coming from you.
Yes, sir.
because I know you only speaking because you don't know.
Yes, sir.
And I accept that. And you know, when you love somebody and they do things that injure you, what do? See? See, you love Jesus?
Come on.
You do?
Come on, dear minister.
I do too.
Yes, sir.
So I live Jesus.
Yes, sir.
You do.
You hear me? What I
Yes,
say?
sir. Yes, sir.
When they hit me, you don't see me hitting them back.
No, sir.
I give you another cheek. Go ahead, baby.
Yes, sir.
Because in the end, I'm going to win you.
That's right, sir.
I'm going to get you for the sake of God and the truth. May God bless you, Siddiqui. May God bless all the presenters. May God bless this to grow into what we can feed from. One thing I wanted to say, Reverend Jackson was the only one when we had the Million Man March that spoke about what was going on in Congress with the Criminal Justice Act, where Mr. Biden was one of the principal architects of the crime bill.
Yes, sir.
Remember that. And in the audience of the Million Man March was a community organizer, Mr. Barack Obama. And the one criticism that he had of the Million Man March, he said it needed to be more organized. I said, thank you, Barack. We need each other.
Right.
And the enemy wins when we stay apart from each other and then throw lobs at each other. No, let's come together.
Yes.
Let's learn how to love each other.
Yes, sir.
And believe me, what a feeling it is. And that day at the Million Man March, nearly 2 million showed up. Not one person fought another
That's right.
at the Million Man
That's
March.
right.
No crime
None.
in the city
Teach, dear minister.
of Washington
Teach.
on that day, because we brought them all together on a spiritual level.
Yes, sir.
Told them, don't bring no reefer.
That's right.
No, don't bring no gun. Don't bring nothing like that. Bring yourself.
Yes, sir.
We told them, don't go to work that day.
Yes.
Don't go to school that day.
That's right.
See, God wants you to make a sacrifice so he can help you.
Right.
Don't punk out over a job.
Go ahead.
And them brothers came
Yes.
on their own dime, because
Yes,
I
sir.
would not ask nobody
Come on.
to give them a bus.
Come on. Go ahead. Teach.
Oh, I'm late. It's only time, Farrakhan. And y'all told me I could take 2 hours, but I know I was not gonna do that to you or myself today. Getting up in age now, and I'm enjoying growing old, and I still have so much juice left.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to blow it with a 2-hour speech.
Yes, sir, dear minister.
So look, I love you all.
Love you.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you for all that you did to make my day. Just by being here and listening to you, you've inspired me. I love you much. And Siddiqui, Cambone, y'all need to tell me who, some of these people are asking for $10, right? Who needed the $10 today that somebody need to give to? You know who it was? If you get in the organization, I got to give something to Siddiqui.
Yes, sir.
This got to keep going.
Yes, sir.
But I can't just give my brother $10.
Go ahead, dear minister.
I want to give him $1,000.
Yes, sir.
So you got to remind me, Siddiqui,
Yes, sir.
who that person was that was asking for $10 a piece. And there were 90 people with $10, and that was almost what?
In that workshop, sir?
Yeah.
economic development, sir,
Yeah,
in that workshop.
okay. So thank you again. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wow, sir, Minister, sir.
Wow. Well, what can I say after that? Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan. So whenever the minister speaks, there's nothing but inspiration in the room. And he's on it when he says that we have to keep this moving. So let me just say that there are folks who worked with me for years to get us to this moment. And we're going to continue to build on this whole piece. This is not something that we're doing from an ego-based situation. This is real life. And I would hope that the folks who participated today are prepared to continue on with the work. We have the information. We're going to be making a call. Like I said before, we would hope that for folks all across the country who were involved, that you'll be inspired to say essentially that you want to sponsor a summit in your region. Like I said, we're going to have the blueprint that we're going to share nationwide with our mission being to have summits happen all across the country, and not just for show, but to see what we can do to work together to do the very thing the minister's talking about, develop our own resources. And as we stated in terms of our theme, it's about what we're going to do for ourselves. So with that, you have our information. We have yours. We're going to be calling on the co-facilitators to come up with written documentation so that we can, as a steering committee, can come together and to put together the blueprint that we want to share nationwide as a guide for folks who want to join what we're doing here. So like I said before, I really appreciate the folks who have and continue to work with me on this. And, as the minister said, we want this to be a we thing. We want folks from all across the country to get on board to do this work. So with that, we will bring this to a conclusion. And like I said before, this is the first step. And I told folks before that what we're building here, we want to have, I have grandchildren, but for folks who have children, we're looking to hand it off to your grandchildren and their children after that. So with that, have a good rest of your day, but understand the fact that this is just the beginning. Okay. So we good, Michelle?